Hello and welcome to a new video. In this video, we are going to go through some problems that you will basically use lists in solving them. For example, here, create a list of squares from 1 to 100. Basically, you would like to create a list like the example here, 1, which is 1 square, then 2 square, which is 4, 3 square, 9, up to 10 square, which is 10. Now, how can you do this? You can use or you can start with an empty list. So let's call my list squares, and I will make it empty in the beginning by just writing square brackets like this. Then I will basically create a loop with the range function that will give me values from 1 to 10. So for I in range 1 to 11, what would I do? For each I from 1 to 10, I will put I square inside the list. Now remember, the way to add an element to a list is by using append, and I would like to append I square. So after the loop, I will simply print squares, and you will see my list of squares. Okay, next problem. Print the index of the first element in the list that is greater than 100. So for example, you have this list. What is the first element that is greater than 100? You have 103. What is the index of this element? The index is 2. So I would like to create a program that will print 2 if I give it this list. How will you do this? Now, remember that we only need the first element that is greater than 100. So for this, you will use the idea of found or a flag that is false in the beginning, like found. We've been through a similar example in the string videos. So found will be false, and I need a variable for the index starting from 0, and I need a while loop with 2 conditions. So I will keep going. I will keep entering the loop as long as the index is less than the length of the list, and as long as I did not find the element. Okay, so while I less than length and not found. As long as I did not find the element, I will enter the list again. Now, what would I do here? I will check if the element, the ith element in the list values is greater than 100. If this is the case, found will be true, and I will simply print I. And after the if statement, in all cases, I will increment I by 1. And that's it. So if I run this code, I will see 2 as my output. So basically here we are just using the idea of flag again, that is starting with false, and whenever I find my target, I will set it to true, and I will print the index of the first element greater than 100. Okay, next problem. Swap the first and last element in a list. So assume you have this list, 135. My desired output or my target is 531, where the first element is swapped with the last element. Now, you might think I can do this the following way. So what I will do is I will store the last element at the position of the first element, and the first element will be stored in the position of the last element. However, if we print values here, notice that we get 535, and I want 531. So why did I get this output? Let's see. So my list is 135. And when I execute this assignment, I'm starting from the right. So what is values at 2? This is 5. Now I'm storing 5 inside values at 0, which means in this list, I'm going to remove 1, and I'm going to store 5. Now I am done with this assignment statement. The next assignment statement will take values at 0 from this list. Now values at 0 has been changed to 5. So I am storing 5 inside values at 2, which will basically just keep 5 here as it is. And this is how I ended up with 535. Now, what I want to do to avoid this mistake is before changing 1 to 5, I want to take 1 and store it inside a variable. For example, I would call it temp. Now, how can you do this? You can simply create a variable before the first assignment, and I would like to store number 1 in it, which is the values at zeros. Then I can freely change 1 to 5, and when I want to change 5 to 1, I'll use temp. Now if I run this, I get 531. So let's go over the code again. What I'm doing is I am creating temp with value equal to 1. Then I am taking values at 2. Remember, my list is 1, 3, 5. So I'm taking values at 2, which is 5. I'm storing it inside values at 0. So 5 is going instead of 1. In the second assignment or the third assignment, I have temp, which is 1. Remember from here, I'm storing it inside values at 2. So instead of 5, I will have 1. Okay. Actually, a side note here, in Python, there is a much easier way to swap elements. You can easily do it by the following code. So instead of this, you will do the following. You will write values at 0, comma, values at 1 equal to values at, sorry, this should be 2, equal to values at 2. Here, values at 1. Simply like this. So values at 0, comma, values at 2, equal values at 2, comma, values at 1. So when I run this now, sorry, this should be 0. I run this now, I get 531. So instead of these 3 lines and a new variable, you can do it in 1 line in Python. Just write the values in certain order here and switch the order on the right hand side. Okay. Now let's move to our last problem. You have a function multiply. It will take a and a factor, 2 arguments. And I will simply write multiply a by the factor and store it back inside a. So if you create a variable b equal 3, then you call multiply with b and 10. So the function will basically multiply 3 by 10, store it back in b. What do you think will happen when I print b? Will I print 3 or 30? Okay, here we'll print 3 because b here has nothing to do with the variable inside the function. The variable inside the function is a local variable. Okay, now let's see the other case here where the first argument is a list instead of one number. Now the content of the function is the same. You are just going through each element in the list in a while loop, and you multiply it by a factor. This should be factor instead of 10. Okay, so when I create a list called my list 1, 2, 3, then I pass my list and 10 as a factor. So basically I would like in the function to go over each element of this multiplied by 10. Do you think when I print my list, I will print 1, 2, 3 because my list is independent from values, or would I print 10, 20, 30? When you run the code, you notice you print 10, 20, 30. So why it is not the same as the uppercase, the case above here? So let's see. When you create my list, Remember, we said in the previous video, you have your list inside the memory with a certain location. Okay, this is the location of the list or the reference. And we said what is stored inside the variable is just the reference. Now, when you call the function multiply, the reference inside my list, which is 2731, is going to be stored or copied to the variable values. So what you have inside the function is values equal to 2731. Okay. So when you go over the list called values inside the function, I am visiting each element in values. But values is the same list as my list because both of them has the same address, the same reference. Again, they are basically two names for the same list. So when you multiply it by the factor, which is in this case 10, you are actually multiplying each number here by 10. So if you are done with the function call and you are back and printing my list, what will you do? You will print the modified list because at the end of the day, you only had one list, okay, with two different names. I hope this was clear and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.